Assalamualaikum everyone. Welcome back to the season 3 of Making It Happen podcast. I have Tina Govan with me today. Tina is a licensed architect and principal of her own firm placemaking studio in Raleigh, North Carolina. She takes a people-based approach to the design of places. She is an active member and regional leader of the Placemaking US and Placemaking X networks and has been a key participating designer in the United States of America program. She is committed to igniting change from the bottom up and uncovering the hidden potential of people and places. Her varied culture experiences from working in different countries continue to inform her work, which strives to build meaningful connections beyond the individual or building to the larger landscape, community, and planet. Assalamu alaikum and hello everyone. I am Asban Sari, the founder of the organization Peacemakers Pakistani, and I am bringing you the stories of placemakers, artists, and professionals from around the globe about how they created an impact and made change happen. You are listening to the Making It Happen show. Thank you for joining in. Enjoy the episode.
Hello.
How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for
Great.
inviting me.
Thank you so much, Tina, for joining me today. I'm so glad to have you. I'm looking forward to learning from you. And so tell me something about where are you and how's the weather over there?
Thanks for inviting me, Asbad. I am in Raleigh, North Carolina, and it's January, so it's a little chilly, but not too much. It's sort of a mild climate here in the south of the US.
That's great. That's great. Okay, I love your place. I love the wooden architecture. I feel so cozy while seeing you there. So it's awesome.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
So let's start with our questions and see what you have to share with us. Okay, so the first question that I ask everybody is, how did you find your passion for public spaces and placemaking?
Okay, so I think I share this with a lot of people, is just having visited cities that excite me, and I see the difference between them and my hometown, and the kind of building frustration over that. So when you go to places that are walkable, or there's a lot of street activity, or there's farmers markets, or there's bike lanes, or all the things, and then you come back and home and you don't have those things. I think that's sort of a building a frustration that kind of bubbled up over in me. I mean, I'm an architect, but I kind of now bubbled up into the public realm out of frustration, honestly. And I think also being a mother. So I think parents have a big role to play in the future of placemaking because of the future of their children. So having frustration around my kids having no places to play, everything being private, having to drive them everywhere, just more frustration about the broader world we live in, the lack of connectivity and sort of human scale and human life has pushed me towards trying to change that and realizing the value of placemaking and the importance of public spaces.
Yeah, and I believe that when the sentiments and the emotional attachments come in the play, we are more focused and we are more drive towards making things differently. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen so many parents take up arms almost to find places to play, to advocate for skate parks, to, clean up creeks, to really care about their broader place and climate change as well, but because of their children. So children are a real catalyst.
Exactly. Interestingly, I have the same story because I'm an architect myself, but while studying, my niece was born and I was like, is she going to suffer what we have suffered as girls, like the safety in the streets? We were not allowed to go outside and play. We didn't feel safe, especially our parents didn't feel safe about us, we being outside independently. So this is how I was driven towards making places better for our children. So yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. And I can remember taking my kids to daycare and driving them, and the streetscape was just deadening and depressing. and feeling guilty that this
Yeah.
is what they were. So yeah, I think your kids, it's a
Yeah.
huge, yeah.
And the inner child within us.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So, as an architect, why did you take people-based approach towards designing of places? I really want to know that. What was your driving force?
Um, well, I mean, I've always taken a people-based approach. I mean, basically people and site-based, because those are the two connections you have to make. You have to connect to your place and to the people, because it just seems common sense, honestly, that because we are not, and sometimes architects can get sidetracked into thinking they're making sculpture, but you're really making a habitat. And if it's not inhabited by live beings in a happy way, then it's not successful, in my view. So, and I guess my education was also very geared towards that. You know, I went to grad school at MIT where they had Kevin Lynch and a very people-based approach to education of architecture. Um, but it's really the test. I can't imagine thinking any other way, honestly. It's just you're making places for people. It's not for magazines or awards or some kind of abstract criteria. It's if people can't live there comfortably and love the place, then you've not succeeded. So in order for it to be animated by life, it's got to be people based, and it's just critical, I think. And I've always looked up to designers who've had that kind of bent, you know, who've observed human behavior. You know, they've observed where people are thriving. You know, why is there life on the street here, or why is this building being used and this one's not? Where's the life? And so connecting to that just seems like a no-brainer. And I can't imagine any other way of thinking, honestly, about it.
That's very sweet. Like it's your human side of being a designer, and that's very lovely. I loved it. Okay, so what do we mean by change from bottom up? And what were your struggles and lessons from your commitment to igniting change from bottom up?
So bottom up is basically empowering ordinary people to take action and to express themselves. You know, up till now, there's been so much power given to the top down, and a lot of fear and controlling, and you know, the whole legacy of city planners and city governments who are become increasingly afraid. And there's been a kind of squelching in the US anyway of the small scale and people expressing themselves and making a difference in their community. So I feel like there's a big groundswell now in reaction to that. There's so much potential in tapping that, because there's life. You know, again, if you look at architecture, urban planning, placemaking, everything about our environment as a habitat, then there's life there of all sorts, and tapping that and letting it express itself is really critical. And it's really the key to making a place thrive. So bottom up just is really paying attention to what is the life in a place, what is there. And that's a big question that a lot of people ignore or choose not to address, or choose to sort of just do it very quickly. But what really is in a place? You know, what are the people there? What is the natural environment of the place? How is the place formed over time? And you know, even back to the tectonic plates, you know, where are the creeks? What are the rituals of a place? What are the children and the old people and all of the things that are there, there? And how can you engage that and tap into that and let that be expressed? And I think in the US, in the cities I've been in, the towns, it's been too much in the opposite direction of, we want to make sure nothing bad happens, and we want to avoid lawsuits, and a lot of top-down control. So I think that the potential going forward in reaction to that is empowering those small scale forces, those people who like want to improve their neighborhood, and realizing the benefit of tapping into that, because it's totally untapped potential. And you see it happening a lot more in, I think, other countries, foreign countries, I have anyway, than I have it here at home. So I hope that we can loosen up here a bit.
Okay, so is it really that it means it's about going to the roots and checking the roots and making that making foundation from there, making it firm over there, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. What are the how can you empower people, small people, kids, ordinary people,
Yeah.
old people, anyone who has the urge to do something or perform or notice what's missing? I want to be able to bike to school, those things, and listen to that and empower it, and I think is what's really exciting about the future of places, if we can open the door to that, and because it can help create better places across the globe, in my opinion.
Yes, it's very inspiring. Yes, while you were talking about it, it felt like yes, we have the power to advocate for these things because we have we know how to do it. The designers know how to do it, and this is how they can give their power to other people.
Exactly. And I think architects have a lot to learn, and urban planners, all of the design professionals, from that, to realize that making an environment, a city, a place, comes from the top and the bottom, that you need both. And you can't decide everything in your position. The architect can't decide all of it and make this fixed object. It's got to be inhabited, and it's got to change over time. And just realizing that that's how places
Well,
thrive. That's how
yeah,
they work, from the
yeah,
bottom and the top. Yeah.
great. Okay, so tell us about the Activate and what is its mission?
So this is an initiative we started in North Carolina. I was part of this initiative to create the NCAIA Activate initiative, and it's basically where they give money to people in different parts of North Carolina, where I am. These are to architects to carry out projects or initiatives that show how architects can become more civically engaged, to have them consider issues beyond just the building, but maybe what's missing in their community, or some more community-oriented work. And then also to make architects and issues of design more accessible to the public, so that the public feels like they have some participation in the future of where they live, or that they can have some dialogue with architects. Because so often, it becomes, architecture anyway, a profession for the wealthy, and it seems inaccessible to people. And it also, issues of design often can be cast as sort of aesthetic intelligence, or some sort of special code that only certain artist types know or understand. And people often feel kind of alienated from design because they think they don't understand it or something. So it's trying to bridge that gap, and try to bring both of these two groups together. So there's been a whole range of projects. There've been talks, and this Placemaking Raleigh initiative that I started is also part of that. And it's basically to make architects stretch a little bit, and address bigger questions about where they live and how they can impact it, and invite the public to come along and engage the community.
Oh, that's great. Awesome. Actually, you really put the emphasis, or let's say that you just highlighted the problem statement over here, that there is a gap between the two parties, and we need to bridge that gap. We need to have dialogues between um, the aspirations of people and the professionals, and what they want for their cities and the public spaces, and what is being done, and then bridge that gap. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that's great.
Yes. And that's exactly what this is aimed at trying to bridge that gap. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so what were the challenges while you were establishing the placemaking rally?
Well, challenges are for all these kinds of initiatives, it's always kind of funding. I think that's an issue that's sort of swept under the rug too often. Is from day one, I always wanted to do work like this, but it would be nice to have it be more of my career. And I think that architects end up can have this kind of schizophrenic life where they go and they make projects for wealthy people who can pay the bills, and then you try to do the community work pro bono, and that's unfortunate. So I wish that those two things could come together. So that's sort of Placemaking Raleigh in a way. I've got some grants for that, but it's not a money-making thing, and I wish that could be more integrated into architects' lives in terms of livelihood. So that's a challenge. I think another one is trying to identify where to intervene in the community. Placemaking Raleigh is basically an initiative to empower ordinary citizens, like I was talking about, to improve their neighborhoods, sort of neighborhood by neighborhood, and give them the tools to do that through a placemaking kit of parts. And also to try to educate them on the process with the city, and to facilitate that and have someone to talk to do that. And they actually have a similar program in San Francisco that I kind of got a lot of help from. But the one challenge is getting the word out, trying to get people to know that this exists, and also to ignite action. People are not used to being active and doing things for their neighborhood, or initiating things, and so trying to encourage people to lead, and to realize that, yeah, hey, I can do this, and I've got support, and it's been a challenge. There's some places you can go where, they're ready to go, they've got kind of a history of doing things together, and that's kind of the low-hanging fruit. But then others where, especially in America, I don't know about Pakistan, but people generally tend to be isolated in their houses, especially if you go into the suburbs. I think the emphasis on private ownership and not having permission to use the public realm has led people to not really venture out very much, literally and figuratively. So I think part of this initiative is to invite people out, to give them permission and say, hey, let's have a street dinner. Hey, you can do something. We can close off the street. I've got the barricades. Let's do it. Or let's have outdoor movies, or let's close down a street and have a skate park, or let's plant a garden, let's clean up a creek. But trying to and get momentum around that is also a challenge. So and also reaching, I have an easier time, like most people, in starting projects in neighborhoods that are close to me, or through relationships that I already have. But venturing out and trying to reach neighborhoods that are underserved, or that I don't have so strong relationships with, has also been a challenge. And I'm really eager to do that, because I feel like there is, again, so much life in every neighborhood, and I would love to be able to celebrate the diversity of the city by reaching them. But that is difficult for me because I don't live in every neighborhood. I only live in one. And so trying to build those relationships, it takes time, but I'm hopeful. But right now that is a challenge for me.
Yeah, I can relate to you in many means. Yeah, about the funding and about the livelihood. Like, exactly that. This is something that we struggle. And secondly, about making people and, to get them to take some action. First of all, people are very used to being served. So we have to ask them to make your own cookie. It's not
Mm-hmm.
available to you. You have to take some action and do it. And secondly, to inspire them and to motivate them to do it, whatever you are dreaming, it's possible to be done.
Yes.
That thing is like inspiring them to lead. Exactly, this is the statement that we have to inspire. And I used to, like this is the season 3 that we are doing for this podcast. But when I started, I used to ask the leaders that how do you encourage people to take action who are not used to taking action, like who are used to not, they are not used to taking the ownership, or they are not used to, um
Yeah.
they don't believe that things can change because they are so used to the norm of not going outside, not interacting. Like things have changed over the time. We used to have engaged, we had a childhood in which we had the engaged community. People were aware of each other, but with time things changed over the course of time, that people had isolated because of the work pressure, because of the financial pressures, economy, and things shifted. And of course the crime rates was one of the reason why people stayed indoors mostly. So this the shift of time is something that has inspired me to really research or observe the changing dynamics. And this has been a journey, but yeah, it was challenging, but now I have learned the ways how you are doing things, by
Yeah.
going to the communities and just starting work with those who believe in you, so they can join you or support you. And while doing things, they will learn how they can do things, and that will
Exactly.
create a ripple effect.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you
Yeah,
build trust over
yeah,
time. And
exactly.
I started a website. It's www.placemakingraleigh.com. And what I'm trying to do there is with each event, I document it and sort of tell the story of it. So
Great.
I'm trying to encourage people to do it by looking at the website and saying, oh, wow, they've done it in all these different neighborhoods or done something like this already. And look how much fun it is. And I take little videos and interview people. And so they can showing by example that in your city, this has already been done and that you can do it too, is also part of the encouragement. And then trying to just step people through the process, because the city website is not very friendly and it can be very intimidating. And so I'm trying to make it a more friendly website that says, look, you just got to do this, this, and this, and try to outline the steps. And so trying to bridge that gap between the people and the government, but by making the steps clear and accessible and inviting people out to do it. Even saying, with grant money, we'll pay for your permit fees, or and if you have questions, call us. I think some of that first support
Mhm.
is really important. And if you can do a few events, or I mean, what I've been doing mostly is street dinners and markets and porch fests and things like that, all kind of just pop-ups.
Mhm.
But and get them, other people from other neighborhoods, to come to those things, then they can also experience it firsthand. So I think just demonstrating it in real life in your town, and see that it's going on in other places, is also encouraging.
Yeah, experiencing it to believe it. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And documenting it. And yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's a pro tip. I have written it down.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so what is the importance of small projects to you? I guess this is where we can put things more in a clear perspective.
Yeah, so I think, just like I was saying about placemaking Raleigh, I think what's great about small projects is that they're accessible, and it gives you an actionable step that you can take right now. And instead of like, oh, we've got to go get funding, or we've got to go appeal to the city council or something big, if you feel like you can do something right now, that's really gratifying, and it's encouraging. And what's great is you get immediate feedback. And I think that the idea of starting small and then having that ripple out is really powerful, because it does ripple out and it does build, and it might take time, but I've been amazed at just small things I've done that with others that have gathered momentum and gotten repeated or rippled out or grown into bigger initiatives. So I mean, it's wonderful just to see the sort of fruits of your labor just right away. So like one small thing I did was there is a strip of grass between the sidewalk and the street in most places here. And so that I started to plant that as a flower garden in the spring. And then other neighbors joined in, and then other kids joined in. And before you know it, we had this like flower garden up and down the street, and people taking care of it. And it was wonderful just when I went walking my dog to walk past this strip and see it grow until it became like 6 feet tall, and there were sunflowers, and to see the flowers, immediately, within a few months. And so that's really encouraging, to see that, and also to feel ownership, to feel like you can make a difference. And and also, when it's small like that, it's an idea that can easily spread. You can do that on your street, and that can do it on that street. And so I think all those are real pluses. And the other plus that I think a lot of people know about is, this idea of tactical urbanism, where it's like, if it's a pop-up and it's temporary, it's less threatening to the city, or, oh, we're only doing this temporarily, but then that can become permanent. So that's an easy sort of entry into making change. And the whole process is just less intimidating. You can decide to go out right outside your door right now and plant that strip with flowers, or do something else that's small and see who notices it and see how it spreads. And so it's just an accessible action that I think is empowering, and teaches people on a small scale the impact they can have.
Yes, I agree. Yes, the thing about it is that it is less intimidating, and that's true. That's true. Okay. Okay. So, let me just. Yep. Are you
I
saying
was just
something?
gonna, I was gonna say one other thing, was just in terms of small scale and bottom up. Um, and I don't know if this is a different question you have, but I really feel like if you look at say like a streetscape too, that it's really critical to have these businesses, small scale businesses, that express themselves versus like big box stores. And this idea of the small has been so squashed, in the US, and maybe oppressive governments as well. But it's just like, Robert Moses, this whole idea, or even developers today. I did a little cafe here in Raleigh, and I had to like match the color scheme of all the other stores, and the idea of making everything neat and tidy, and is really not what people want. And so if you really want to express the diversity of a place, then let it be expressed and give them the freedom to do that. So like if you go, there's some places in New York and other places where you'll see a lot of richness on the street, because the shops are a certain scale, they're a certain width. It's not like, oh, this big development, we're gonna, all top down control it, and it's all gonna look the same. It's like boring. And we know what good cities are. We know what we like, and that's not it. And so if you allow, even if you were to make a structure and allow people to express themselves outside and have the freedom to do these small scale interventions, then you'd have a much richer streetscape than you would if it's all just sort of top down controlled. And I think developers and cities need to start realizing that this small scale, fine grained energy and expression is really important to making a city interesting and allowing people the feeling of agency and ownership and being able to express themselves. It's a huge win-win for everybody.
Yes, I agree. And this is what we struggle here most, because the most part of my city of Lahore is like where there is diversity. There used to be diversity, but over the time with developments, new construction happening over here, new developments, and they are purchasing the land, and then they are demolishing it and recreating a facade which is more, you know, more what do we say? It's unified. It's not unified, but it's like same, the boring
The
facade.
same.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the same,
yeah,
the boring
yeah.
facade. So
And I think that, yeah, it's true.
you can't judge
The-
that if this person has more to it. Like, people speak from their expression. They're sharing their expression that what we are giving to you. Some have more passion in their work, in their service, and that shows from their facade. And some has just typical serving or the typical style of doing things, and that shows from the facade. Like, I feel more invited to the places that has more diversity, that are more colors and more life happening around it. But if I see something that's totally blank, or I don't like to go there. But now that all the places are same, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. So I just choose to shop online.
yeah, and that's sad. And so,
Yeah.
but I think, I mean, another lesson is that, is this idea of allowing the bottom up, allowing the small scale out. So like you can make a development, and there's a professor I studied with, John Habraken, who's like an expert at this. It's like you making an infrastructure, a structure that you allow people within that to express themselves. You can make the overall, but allow the individual shops and owner tenants to express themselves in different ways. And then you have to do less work. They're the ones doing all the exciting stuff. Let them and let them spill out on the sidewalk. Let them enliven the street. Let them, come outside and bring people in and express the life that they have. And you can house them in a bigger kind of infrastructure or a bigger box, but allow the small scale to breathe. And it's the same idea with the city. They can make certain kind of rules or parameters, but allow this bottom scale, this bottom up, small scale energy to contribute to the environment and express itself. So I think that's a whole nother avenue for developers, that they're sort of too scared to go down some of them. But this incremental, small scale life that they can let inhabit, sort of like a coral reef. You have holes, and then you let the individual organisms come out and express themselves and sell their wares on the street. And one shop's different from the other. Why not? It would be so much better. And then what they try to do instead is design a kind of fake variety sometimes, where they have certain things that they trying to make it look that way. We're trying to make it look like it grew over time, or we'll try to make it look like it's got variety. Well, why not just let the life that's there, the variety there, express itself? You don't have to design it. You let it, you set up the stage for it to happen.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's beautifully put together. You have worked in different countries. Can you share any key lessons from the experience?
I think, I lived in Africa for a couple of years, and I lived in Japan for a couple of years, and I've traveled. And I think what I've seen is just the looseness in what's allowed on the streets. Sometimes I think it's funny that they have like Placemaking Africa and stuff, because they're naturally placemaking all the time. When you go to places that are not so regulated, then you see all kinds of life come out. And or like if you go to New Orleans, which is a place in the US, which is sort of maybe least regulated, but that's when you see the life that's possible, is when you go to places where top-down control is much less strong. And the way people use public space, how everything spills outside, the presence of like cultural and ritual uses in the public realm, I think were all wonderful to see. Is like in Japan, the shrines, and also the presence of all ages, the presence, the young people, old people, going to Greece and Turkey and seeing how old men just routinely come outside and sit on the street and play board games with each other. Just the routine uses of the street. You become aware of how the car, of course, affects everything here in the US because it's such a strong presence. In Africa, they would do walkabouts where at night everyone would go outside and just walk up and down the street and visit with each other. And I've told the story before, but just, there's one time we went to Turkey and we were eating at a restaurant and there was a bunch of kids playing in a field right outside, playing soccer, and they invited my children to play with them. And so we watched them play soccer while we ate, and then they made these great friends, and we saw them the next day at the market, and it's made them feel so much more integrated into the place. So it's that, and if you go to any kind of plaza, you just see this kind of mix. And I wish for that here, where you would go to Zócalos in Mexico and see old couples dancing together and bands. And, in Greece, young kids out till midnight with their families while they are eating and drinking and talking, and they're on scooters and playing soccer and hitting balls, and everyone's out together. So it's real public communal space. And there's no fear around it. There's no segregation, where the adults go out to the bar and the kids stay home with the babysitter and the old folks are, in some facility. So it's just everyone mixing, and it just feels like you come out and you meet your city. You meet the full spectrum of people that live here, and you see them playing, and it's such a wonderful thing to sit out and have a meal and watch kids running around in a way that you no longer can, maybe, or they're playing games. And so that kind of alive space and freedom of movement and play out at night, I think, is something that I've seen in other countries, and really would love to see more here at home.
Also, it's such a sweet story. Like the way you were telling it made me feel that you were happy there. It was a happy place for you. So it's very sweet to know that. And what I would like to add here is that I believe in Pakistan, everyone is a placemaker. Like people are doing things on their own a lot of time. But the drawback is that they are not following any rules. That's why more challenges and more struggle are happening for other people. So I really wish that people are more kind or more compassionate towards other people while they are doing their thing. And I just like to document what's happening over here. Like I love the way people are doing the placemaking on their own and on the daily basis. But I really wish that they do follow some of the rules, so it's more regulated and like there is more order in the chaos. Like they need to have some order.
They're not. Yeah. They aren't following rules, and you wish that they were. Is that right?
They are not following rules, and I wish they were. They were.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I feel like over here, I wish there were less rules.
Yeah. Some of the rules are necessary, like for not stepping onto other people's boundary. That sort of
I see.
Fine line has to be practiced. This is what I really wish for my people here. Otherwise, there's a lot of life happening here. So I love that part of my city.
Yeah, I think that what other countries have to show the U.S. is the fact that, you know, they don't, a lot of places don't need placemaking, quote unquote. I mean, I think one danger of placemaking is like making it into another profession that somehow you need intervention for. But there's a lot of just natural life happening in places that are thriving, and that if there isn't a lot of intimidation and gatekeeping and top-down control, that can come out and express itself. And to go to these places where it is great, and we can learn from that. What are the conditions for letting that happen? And I think we need to see more examples of just joy and play, and people doing things for themselves and not being inhibited. I think we need more of that here as kind of a therapy, kind of public therapy for us all.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So lastly, I would like to ask that as an architect, what would you say to encourage people to design more according to the people-based approach?
The people-based approach. Okay. I think that, again, to keep in mind that we're making habitats and not monuments. I think that, again, I would refer people to this professor of mine. He wrote this book called The Structure of the Ordinary by John Hebraken. And he really points to the fact that, the architecture profession grew up sort of to serve a wealthy class that's separate from the ordinary citizen, and often to make monuments, with Palladio and everything. So it's like they making works of art and monuments that are separate from the fabric of ordinary living. And that may have been, we'd make cathedrals and institutional buildings, and that may be how it started, but that's not what we're doing today. So architects and developers are now making ordinary environments for everyday people and their everyday interactions, and they have to embrace that. So shifting away to that and recognizing that, and what does that mean? So you have to take into account people and how they use space in a daily environment, and also how it changes over time and how people change. And you aren't making these monuments that are static and fixed. That you have to think in terms of change, and you have to allow that and encourage it and celebrate that, because that's what really animates it. Again, like a coral reef or something, it's going to be inhabited by life that sort of washes over a place, it inhabits a place, reinterprets it, and then it becomes something else. It's not just this fixed thing. And I think that's something that's kind of missing from education. And I think the education system needs to change, to sort of emphasize the change, the flexibility, the adaptability, the resilience that our built environment has to have. It's like an organism. It's a living thing. And it's not this object. And judging it in that way is really important to the profession evolving. I think that things are shifting and people are seeing beyond the building, and I think that the tendency to just see things as isolated objects without connection to the site or the bigger context, not just in terms of the physical, but also the social and everything else. How does it connect? How does it fit into this organism, this fabric? The seeing in a broader way is really important. And it's starting to shift, but I think we need to speed it up. So it's really what the profession pays attention to. And traditionally it's been what it's made awards for. What does it award? What does it reward? Maybe start shifting the criteria of what wins these awards, or maybe the awards are recast in some way. But it's not just all the form and the aesthetics and the trends of how things should be looking, but how are you really contributing to a larger living environment, and how are you connecting to people? How can we make a more socially responsible world with how we intervene, and to see how you intervene in just these in terms of these bigger questions. And so I would like to see that, you know, and we've got to move beyond the magazine shot and the awards, and looking more at life after the photo op. And I think that one way to sort of loosen up the profession in architects is to is for them to maybe try a project where there really isn't a building, or where the building is very minimal part of it. You know, do something where it's really more about the people, and how it's animated, how it's used, or maybe it's a temporary thing, or, you know, like I did like a pop-up farmers market in a parking lot. The amount of joy I got out of that was unbelievable. It wasn't about the architecture, it was a surface parking lot, but the life that came there blew me away. And I felt more joy there than anything else I've ever done. It was so understanding that it's about people and life, and seeing something that you helped bring into being, or some sort of stage that you made that got inhabited by life is incredibly inspiring. And because, you know, too much in the past, it's been taking pictures of empty buildings and you look at my cantilever or something, or look at the detail of something, and all that's, you know, not to diminish that, but I think we can get too caught up in that, and to begin to see sustainability not just in terms of, you know, the green and you know, energy, but also in terms of people's connection to a place. So if people love a place, they'll take care of it over time, and that's another kind of cultural and social sustainability that I think needs to be really valued and highlight. You know, people need to connect to it and love it. And how can you make places that support life best and that people will love over time? I think that's really important.
It was such a valuable advice, but such a lovely advice that I really loved it. Like being a young professional, or like a fresh graduate, not very fresh, but being a really recent
Yeah.
architect, I really appreciate this because we are still in the phase that what we were taught, what I needed to do, what I wanted to do, and then, you know, asking myself that what is happening and what shall be the future. So this was very valuable advice. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so now by moving on to the rapid fire question that I ask everyone to know them more on a personal level. So, okay, so let's begin that. What keeps you focused? What drives you?
Well, just walking around my city and seeing things that I think could be better. I think the people I meet, you know, and what they say. I think my children and their friends, and seeing what they are yearning for. Basically, you know, trying to make how we live on this planet better. And I think just being reminded of that in every way, you know, locally with people I know here, and also just seeing the buzz around me more and more. I mean, when I was first coming up as an architect, there was much less talk and attention given to this kind of thing. So now there's all kinds of publications and initiatives, strong towns and City Lab, you know, the placemaking networks. There's even architecture firms that are becoming more sort of socially and environmentally aware, like Mass Design. There's groups called incremental development that try to support local businesses. There's, you know, the Bloomberg initiatives, there's City Lab, there's all kinds of grants and attention giving to this. And I think it's in reaction to what's come before, you know, the suburbs and all the harm actually that's been done to the environment. And so people are reacting against that, and young people are as well. So I think all of that really feeds into what I've always been turned on by. And it's exciting to see the momentum building. and just the attention given to maybe just stopping and listening. I mean, COVID gave us a chance to reflect and stop and take a pause, instead of just plowing ahead. You know, in the US, it's basically more as fast as possible. You know, make as much money and develop as quickly as possible, but don't stop to think too much. And people are reacting against that, young people especially. And I think that's really encouraging. And so that's all of these forces. I feel like now is the time when, you know, with climate change bearing down, that that these are all motivating, and there's just so much going on that it's actually overwhelming, and it's great. And I you know, and again, with architects and everyone, this idea of stopping and paying attention, you know, listening. Let's observe. Could we just observe first? You know, and it's like, no, the slate is clean. It's a blank slate. I'm gonna build and design my vision because I'm a genius. I'm an artist. And you know, it's like, no, screw the artist. You know, never call yourself an artist, in my opinion. It's like, let other people say that. But it's like, it's just do try to stop, you know, push aside the ego, and this is my opinion, my philosophy, and let's just try to observe a little bit, see, you know, listen, look, and then, you know, and move from there. You know, it's not all about, so start with what is, and then move on from that, you know, improvise from that. But if you never sort of stop and notice what is, what's there, then you're kind of operating in a vacuum, and you can make all kinds of mistakes. So I hear these voices, you know, all around, and it's exciting. And so that's what drives me. Jan Gehl is another hero, of course. You know, he's an architect turned people watcher and public placemaker.
Awesome. Lovely. Okay, and do you remember any memory, or would you like to share any moment or memory of yours when you were truly proud of the work you are doing, like the placemaking or the people-based approach?
Yes. Well, there's actually two. There's one is this pop-up farmers market where I kept walking by it every day, and it was empty, and it was ugly, and a kind of missing tooth in the fabric. And so I couldn't believe that I could get a permit to actually pop up a market there, and that I could have access to this, and bring all these farmers and produce sellers to this place and the neighborhood. So that, like, there was all kinds of pushback I got, but the first market was crazy successful and unbelievable. So that was very encouraging, just to see this totally dead space spring up, sort of like a garden, out of the blue. And so it's those kinds of really harsh differences that are exciting to me. And then another one was a school for underprivileged kids, an after school program, and foster children. And they were being housed sort of in this sort of auto showroom, and they had no playground. It was basically just a parking lot. And their conditions were really pretty challenging and sad. And so my firm came in and created a green courtyard in the middle, and tore up the parking lot and put classrooms around this central green courtyard, and with a big porch around it, and places for the kids to spill out, and outdoor gardens. And we went to visit it afterwards, and it was completely different. The kids were very different. We talked to the teachers, and they just said that the kids were much calmer now. There was less sort of violence in the classroom, that kids were paying attention. They were loving coming to school. So seeing that kind of change among a sort of underserved population, and seeing them play, and just really gave me a lot of inspiration and motivation behind changing the environment. That makes a difference. It really affects people's mental health and their relationships to each other. And that school just really showed it. It was like night and day. The teachers loved it more. Everyone was calmer. And so I think that's sort of a metaphor for the city, that you can be calmer and be more civil to each other if you have a more nurturing environment where you can get outside and have contact with nature. And so that was a great success, I thought.
Yeah, that's very sweet. That's lovely. I love that. Yeah. Okay. And any struggling moment of yours that you remember during the work of your life?
Well, there's countless struggles, but I guess one low point in terms of the placemaking world was just I thought that this surface parking lot was perfect for a farmer's market, and I was trying to make that happen. And then in my neighborhood, I threw out the idea, and then some other neighbors started forming their own committee, and they wanted the farmer's market in front of their house, and they were against this one, and they wanted it, to have to sell the things that they wanted. And um were just one or two very vocal people were very discouraging. And so I felt like this was one of my first forays into sort of trying to do something in such a public way with placemaking, and I felt kind of discouraged, like, oh, maybe this community work is really not so great. And I couldn't get consensus. And I think I persevered, and it all came out wonderful. But I think anytime you working with the community, it's challenging, and selfish motives can rear its head, and people can think more about themselves and use this kind of quote community work to basically serve their own ego or interests, and that's always a hazard. And so that was a challenge in doing this Person Street market.
Yes. I ask this question to people because it is encouraging and motivating in one way. And yes, while you talk about your struggling moment and how everyone got, how they persevered and how they came out, and how it turned out well at the end, how they learned the lesson. So it's encouraging both ways. So I just love to
Yes.
ask their stories. Okay, so is there any placemaking mantra that you love or that you keeps your focus on, keep your eye on while you work?
Um, I need to craft my own, I think, but the one I guess that comes closest so far, off the top of my head, is the Fred Kent quote of "Everyone has the right to live in a great place, or a place that they love, and everyone has the right to contribute to making the place where they already live great."
Mm.
Which is like the Jane Jacobs quote in some ways about cities offering something for everybody only when they're created by everybody. Yeah. And so I think that kind of gets very close to my mantra.
Yes, and I think that you already mentioned one also, that observe and listen and then start from there. So yeah,
Exactly.
that's also a good advice, a good tip. Okay, do you want to share anything about the placemaking in Pakistan or Pakistan in general?
Again, going on the idea of listening and observing, I haven't done that really in Pakistan. So I don't feel qualified to really express much of an opinion. I have a couple friends from Pakistan who I greatly admire and are really creative, progressive people. So, and I love them. But I can't say I know enough about the culture, honestly.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, I know that women don't have an equal status with men, is my understanding.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's unfortunate. But I know they've got wonderful culture and traditions. But I've never been, and I don't feel qualified really to say much beyond that. Then I'm hoping that women can be more empowered there.
Yeah, great. Thank you for being honest about it. I really appreciate that you voiced your word about it. And I wish to share more about our culture so you can know that. And I hope that you can experience it over here someday.
Yes,
Soon. Yeah.
yes, yes, for sure. I'd love to.
I would love to have your. Okay, lastly, is there any advice that you would like to give to the young professionals who are joining in?
Um, let's see. I would say that you should sort of take a beginner's mind to whatever uh, profession you have, and to take a broader view. You not to think only in terms of this is my role in terms of a narrow definition. I am an architect and only look at these things, but to be open to those around you, especially if you're involved with any work in the environment or the built or natural environment, is that a lot of people are waiting to be asked, or you'd be surprised what kind of collaborations can spring up if you just reach out and ask people. And a lot of people are afraid to ask, and they're
Yeah.
waiting for someone. And if you think about yourself, you might just be working along in your world, but then if someone calls you and invites you, like you did to this podcast, or anything invites you, you say, well, yeah, maybe, yeah, okay, I'll do that. And then that opens the door, and then something starts happening. And so I think people forget that if you just invite someone or reach out to someone, there's all kinds of potential there. And we all just kind of get going on our own little groove. And so cross-pollination and collaboration doesn't happen. You're kind of waiting for someone to make the first move and the first invitation, and to do that. So just ask, to break out of your silos, to try to work with people in other disciplines, to see whatever you're working on from different perspectives, and also to advocate for what you feel is missing, and to speak up. And you'd be surprised at the kind of impact you can have. And also, a lot of other people are waiting for someone else to speak up. And so once you speak up, someone says, yeah, I was thinking that too, or I would like to join you in that. And so that's another discovery you can make just by taking an action, or asking a question, or pushing back. And then I would say, that we're all making places, and you should just look for overlaps with other professions, and to always remember your childhood and places that you loved, and to bring that to your work, to really tap your whole person, how your body feels in a place, how you felt as a child, the places that you loved. And remember that when you're working on whatever project you're working on, and see things in terms of the life, and you've got your own human life to draw from. Being a human should inform what you do. We're making places for humans and for other life forms, and to keep that in mind, because I think, with deadlines and projects, you can get very narrowly focused, um, and lose track of that. And bringing that refreshing perspective, I think, would be welcomed by everybody. And you can make your own path that way. You start advocating for these things and bringing a perspective, and you can create this kind of work, I think, will start coming to you, instead of feeling like you have to just approach work the way other people have done it traditionally. Or, so once you start making those kinds of reaching out actions, then the work will come to you that will satisfy you more, I think.
Great. What a valuable advice. Thank you so much, Tina. It was lovely talking to you. I've learned a
Sure.
lot of things. I just love our conversation. I
Yes.
wish you good luck, and I hope to reconnect soon again. Thank you
Great.
so much for
Thank
your
you
time.
so much. Yes,
Take
this is
care.
wonderful.
Bye
Thank you,
bye.
Aspa. Bye bye.